We bring in now Riley Gaines. We got a lot to dive into with her. But Riley, let me take you back in time with COVID for a minute before we get into the craziness of the sports universe in terms of men competing as women. You were a University of Kentucky SEC champion swimmer. What do you remember about what you guys had to do during COVID? Because I think a lot of this is just getting totally memory hold. If I remember correctly, you guys had to wear masks sometimes between laps or craziness for swimming. What was it like even at UK?
Saying it out loud now, you almost forget you lived it. You almost forget the insanity, the nonsensicalness of it. COVID hit, of course, in March of 2020, which was the end of my sophomore year. Bar the fact we were robbed of an NCAA championships that year, which, of course, is the meet you work all year. It's the meet you work all your life for. About 3 days before we were supposed to leave, that meet was very suddenly and swiftly canceled. We were sent home for a few months. We eventually got to come back to school, and upon returning, of course, it was the immediate mandatory vaccines. It was the contact tracing. I mean, they made it miserable. We couldn't go to class. They told us, me specifically being that I was the team captain, they told me I had to get the vaccine or else I'd be hurting my team. But, of course, this didn't sit right with me, right? Being young, being healthy. I'd already had COVID at that point, which, being a biology student, I understood the antibodies to be the most natural and best form of immunity. So I pushed back on this. And I said, no, I don't. To which I said, well, can you define mandatory for me? And that is when they lost the plot. It was almost as if they hadn't prepared for what to say. They weren't given a script of what to say when asked this question. And so that's when they responded back, well, we really mean highly suggested. And I said, well, you can take that and shove it because I'm not getting the vaccine. But let me tell you, Clay, the rest of my collegiate career, so all of my junior year, all of my senior year, they made it miserable for me. I had to go to testing every single week. They made it at 5 a.m. to make it what they described as inconvenient for us. I had to wear a mask in the weight room. We did have to wear a mask in between laps when we got out of the water on the pool deck. I mean, we essentially waterboarded ourselves every single day for the next 2 years.
You had to wear masks between laps in the pool?
Yeah, they tried everything. I mean, they thought of things like, well, we'll have some people start on one end of the pool. We'll have other people start on the other end of the pool. We'll alternate lanes. I mean, like I said, none of it made sense. Again, and we're playing a sport. We're in chlorine, right, which is going to kill any sort of, germ or whatever it is. So all of it from top to bottom was utterly ridiculous. And we all recognize it to be true. But I will say, people got the vaccine out of convenience to make it easier for them to be able to compete. I remember they sat me down and they said, Riley, again, you're the team captain. We have a big meet against University of Alabama, a big SEC rivalry. You're not going to get to go if you don't get the vaccine. To which I knew that was BS, and so I said, that's fine, I won't go then. And of course I got to go to University of Alabama, and no, I never got the vaccine.
And I bet you're glad that you did. And let me kind of build on this too. So many young people, I think I started off the program talking about the lies that were told about COVID. And I think certainly the lies that were told about Biden. But you mentioned something that I think is important. And I know there's a lot of people out there listening that have kids, grandkids, may have happened to you out there listening as well. I still can't get my hands wrapped around it totally. You were around 20, right, in March of 2020 when all this chaos started, roughly?
That's right.
Can you imagine if you had been 16 instead? Because it sucked for you at 20. But imagine that it is March of 2020. You are gearing up for whatever spring sport you're involved in the country right now. You're gearing up for your junior year of prom season, all that. 16, 17, 18. I talk now to kids on college campuses, Riley, and I'm sure you do too. In many parts of the country, these kids went home in March of 2020 as 16-year-olds. And they basically didn't see the kids they went to high school with in a big group again in many parts of the country until they graduated in the next year in June of whatever it would have been, 2021, 2022, some of these places. So you miss your junior year, end of year. You miss everything that happens during your senior year. For everybody out there listening, think about how transformative usually your 16, 17, 18-year-old era is. it is not surprising to me that there are so many kids out there that are angry about what was taken from them. You're close to that same age. You're on college campuses all the time. Do you hear that from kids today?
I hear that all the time, not only from my peers, from my friends, from people I had classes with, but Clay, I've got a younger sister and a younger brother. My brother was about that 16-year-old age group during the time of COVID in 2020, and he was in the middle of his football season. They were on pace to be state champions. He went to Donaldson Christian Academy. All of that was taken from them. My little sister, she was in middle school transitioning to high school. I mean, it was horrible. My oldest sister, she graduated college from Ole Miss in 2020. So they had this virtual graduation where she got to walk the stage, so they called it virtually, where everyone sat on Zoom. It was the craziest thing. And even now, again, let's say 4 years post-COVID era, the way the educational realm has changed is transformative. It is totally different. My sister's high school experience, again, will be a junior next year in high school. Her experience now is totally different than when I was in high school. Granted, now it's getting kind of up there, 8 or so years ago. But even still, totally different experience that my younger sister has had compared to the experience that I had in high school.
So the data is out there that young people overwhelmingly broke in the direction of Trump in 2024. Young men in particular. You mentioned you have a brother. I've got two teenage boys, one 10-year-old, but I see it from all of them that they're just fed up. They're angry. And I think it's not only COVID, it's the lies that they were told. And I want to share this. Earlier today, Trump sent out a truth post and said, California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's sports. This week, a transition male athlete at a major event won everything, now qualified to compete in the state finals next weekend. As a male, he was less than an average competitor. As a female, this transition person is practically unbeatable. This is not fair, totally demeaning to women and girls. He then calls out the governor, Newsom, who has said it is unfair. He says, I will speak with him today to find out which way he wants to go. In the meantime, I'm ordering local authorities, if necessary, to not allow a transition person to compete at the state finals. This is a totally ridiculous situation. Can you believe years after you swam against Leah Thomas now, 3 years ago, if I remember correctly, that we are still in a position where, if anything, Democrats have hardened their stance on this being okay?
You know what, Clay? I truthfully imagined, I knew this, of course, would be an election issue. It would get us through November of 2024, but I really believed that, of course, we would see this red wave, which we saw, and I believed after that the Democrats would slowly begin to recant, to distance themselves from their voting records, from their positions they've taken on totally outlandish, crazy stuff, such as men and women's sports. But that is not at all what they have done. They have doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on this insanity. I love how Trump words it. He is so plain in his language, of course, which is another reason why I think specifically young people love him, are drawn to him. He's so authentic. He says, as a male, he was less than an average competitor. And that's so true. That is virtually the case in every scenario, every situation, every circumstance where we see this happening. We don't see it going the other way. It is virtually always mediocre boys, mediocre men who couldn't hack it in their own division, or maybe ranking in the bottom of the barrel, right? They switch over to the women's league, and they substantially skyrocket in the rankings, whatever that system may be at the state level, in what he's describing here in California. This boy by the name of A.B. Hernandez. Maybe, I'm sure you remember, Clay, about a week or so ago, a video went viral of this young girl who placed second in California. Her name is Reese Hogan in the triple jump. But it was only after everyone exited the podium, with the man, of course, standing atop the podium, where she jumps on the first place podium. And I thought that was the most remarkably brave display that really we've seen thus far. I mean, we've seen some pretty awesome things, right? Like, I think of the girls in West Virginia, the middle schoolers who boycotted in shot put, which Outkick was the first to report on, by the way. I think of several instances of girls boycotting, but this I thought was really the perfect way to embody and highlight that man atop the podium was a total fraud, and everyone recognizes it.
You got into it with Jamel Hill a little bit over the weekend. Jamel Hill is a crazy person who used to work at ESPN. She's kind of the female version, maybe, of Keith Olbermann, who you've also gotten into it over with. I just, 3 years ago, if only women had swam in your NCAA championship, where do you think you'd be?
Well, my plan, when I was post-graduating from University of Kentucky, I was in dental school, actually set to specialize in endodontics, so root canals, basically. That's what I had planned. That's what I was set to do. That's what I prepared to do. I scored in the top percentile of the DAT nationally, which is the dental admissions test, the test to get into dental school. I had been awarded tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship funds to continue my education in dentistry. So that was certainly the plan. I had married my husband. Our life would look a whole lot different had that man, that 6'4", again, as President Trump words it, mediocre man, not been in the pool with us, in the locker room with us that day.
So I think this is so important because you get attacked, I think, unfairly, and I'm sure on a level that you never would have ever anticipated for just being a woman who believes women's sports should be made up of women. And I love when I see your tweets, J.K. Rowling, just fearlessness, because this is not a complicated issue. But the only reason you have ended up doing what you are doing is because, one, you're fearless, but two, you dealt with this directly, and you never want any other girls or women to ever have to deal with this either. And yet you get attacked for that. I just think it's really important to hammer home.
That's it. The stance that I've taken, of course, I've been painted to be this super radical, crazy, right-wing grifter, as Jamel Hill would call it. But, I mean, I still live my daily life, like, with my husband, with my family, with my animals and my dogs. We live on a flower farm. Like, I'm still me. The only, I guess, radical position that I've taken is that men cannot become women, and that there are two sexes, and that each sex is deserving of equal opportunity, of privacy, and of safety. But several times now, of course, you have Keith Olbermann. I genuinely think this man is, like, needs to be in an asylum somewhere. I don't think he's stable. Like, we should be doing, like, welfare checks on him every day following November 5th. But you've got Jamel Hill, who has told me on multiple occasions now over the past few years that I need to thank Leah Thomas every single day of the rest of my life for getting me famous. Again, reminder, I did not ask for this. I did not want this. I simply took a position that 100% really of common sense people have taken. And I would say 90 to 95% of everyday common sense Americans who, I mean, it's a position they take too, but they just weren't willing to say it 3 years ago. Now you compare that to 2025, and the landscape has shifted, right? People, of course, are becoming more bold, more willing to say what everyone already knows to be true. And with that, the response that we see from the left, from the other side, people who don't have common sense, people who vehemently hate women, people like Jamel Hill, former ESPN host, of course, that is to increase as well. So I say bring it on. Lots of things that bother me, that scare me, but Jamel Hill and her professional race baiting certainly isn't one of them.
I love the easy question of, and I've used this, and I think it just really, I would encourage you guys to deploy it in your own life. If people attack you on this issue, just say, hey, I don't think men should be able to compete in women's sports. That's my opinion. That's your opinion. That's the opinion of a lot of people listening out to us right now. Isn't it amazing how rarely, if ever, anybody on the left attacking you will ever say what their opinion on the issue is?
Of course, and it's because I believe deep down they don't think it either, right? These Democrats, whether it's these elected officials, people in Congress, whether it is people like Jamel Hill, especially actually people like Jamel Hill, sports reporters who understand, who've been reporting on both men's and women's sports for decades, for years. Of course they don't believe that men can magically become women with the same physical capabilities. Of course they don't believe that. But for some reason, it has just been this hill that they are willing to die on. I don't know if it's the virtue signaling. I don't know if it's the fear of the wrath from the other side. I don't know if they're so bought into like this oppression Olympics that they're willing to proclaim it subtly, right? But you're right. People like Jamel Hill, I asked her the other day, great to hear from you. This is the stance that I've taken. Would love an answer from you. You're a self-proclaimed women's sports enthusiast. How do you feel about men competing in women's sports? And I followed it up by saying silence is an answer, to which, of course, she did not answer the question. So that makes it very clear to me where she stands on this.
Riley, happy belated Memorial Day weekend. Keep up the fight, and we appreciate the time today and encourage everybody out there to follow Riley. You can see her shows many different places, including Outkick. See her on Fox News all over the place. Riley, good stuff.
And by the way, congratulations on your book. Super awesome endorsement. Very, very excited for you.
Thank you. That is Riley Gaines. Encourage you to follow her. We'll share all the contact if you're not already following her. And yes, you mentioned got a new book coming out, and President Trump endorsed it. I'll read you that endorsement over the weekend. Over the weekend, he endorsed it. I'll read it for you here in a little bit. Good reason why so many people choose to have a will made. One of them is you don't want to burden your family members with the uncertainty of your final wishes when your life ends. You want a will so your wishes are clear and followed. You might also want to trust. You can take care, basically, of all of the challenges associated with whatever you leave behind financially, possessions-wise, by just getting everything written out in advance. It takes away a lot of the stress from your family, maybe a lot of the squabbles over who gets what, and unfortunately happens. You need a will and a trust, and you can go to trustandwill.com. They make it simple, affordable, and an easy result for peace of mind and clarity in the future for you and your family. The website again, trustandwill.com. I've done this for my family. You should do it for yours. They're experts in creating personalized trusts and wills that protect your legacy. That's trustandwill.com.